the only chance that you have for justice in the American legal system, the only chance, is a trial by jury. And they'll try to say, well, you don't get a trial by jury unless you mail back our form within 7 or 10 days. All of that from our court system is flirting with a righteous rebellion, a righteous, violent rebellion, because it's all violating people's rights and violating the rights of innocent people who know they're innocent. And that should be the stance of every candidate that we run, because the silent majority is pissed off in this country. They're pissed off, but they're unphilosophical. And they saw that Trump was a fighter and a winner, so they backed Trump. They saw that he was a fighter, and he was willing to say whatever he thought was true. And that's a candidate quality that is unbelievably highly respected. So what did the Libertarian leadership do? And incidentally, it's the same person who runs Ballot Access who was responsible for recruiting Gary Johnson in 2012 and 2016, and Bill Weld in 2016, an even less libertarian candidate. The Libertarian Party recruited a mouse to run for itself in 2016. In the year where they had the most opportunity, and of course, because the government degrades more and more every 4 years, each president inherits a government more degraded than the one that existed, under his predecessor's term. In the year where the government was most degraded and the people were angriest, and the incumbent's 2 terms were over, he couldn't run again, so the popular incumbent couldn't be reelected, and everybody was looking for a businessman or somebody who was a straight shooter or a bold talking rebel to run. The Libertarians had one such person. They had John McAfee, an honest candidate, a legitimate candidate, and a very boldly but very well-spoken candidate. And of course, the Libertarian Party leadership, same ones responsible for our 30-year failing streak, that would be a 45-year failing streak if it wasn't for Dick Randolph up in Alaska, and Don Gorman, and I guess a couple others in New Hampshire. But once again, New Hampshire has 400 state legislative seats, and so you'd have to win over 200 seats to have a simple majority. And the Democrats and Republicans just merge into one party and oppose Libertarians. So unless you have a game plan to win a majority on a state legislature, you don't have a plan. You don't have a viable plan. You have to pick another state. New Hampshire is just, there's too few electable Libertarians in New Hampshire for the way that the state structures its electoral system to make a difference. And in addition to that, they have no initiative in referenda, so you can't offload those costs onto anyone else who's doing a massive amount of fundraising for a libertarian cause. Whereas you can do that in Alaska, in Arizona, in Colorado, in Wyoming, in Washington, in Oregon. Although Wyoming, the initiative process hasn't been used in a long time because you have to get a large percentage of the entire population to sign the petition. All these things are vital things to know at the beginning, before you even start to plan a libertarian strategy. So I hope some of this has been useful to some people. I hope that this kind of gives you a broader perspective of what the Libertarian Party is. It's controlled opposition, essentially. It's controlled by our enemies, the state, and it won't do any good to find out who these saboteurs are. It's not even worth me mentioning the person by name who is controlling ballot access for the Libertarian Party, because he would be replaced by another deep state operative. If you walk into any Libertarian Party meeting and you flash a bunch of cash around, or you donate $20,000 to the Libertarian Party of freshly printed Federal Reserve notes, that'd be real hard for the government to pull off, wouldn't it? $20,000 contribution that you could just as easily steal later from your favorite contractors, essentially put it in your pocket, no one would ever know about it. That's what's going on, with the Libertarian Party. The problem with it is that you flash a bunch of cash around, make big donations, walk around with a serious look on your face and a suit and tie, and people promote you to a position of leadership. especially if you volunteer for that position of leadership, as this person and his friends all do on a repeated basis every time that there's a Libertarian National Convention. So they're going to be doing their thing as well as they can. They're going to be derailing the Libertarian Party. We have to install systems that, if the system is followed, then the result is libertarian success. And if the system is not followed, it's obvious who's not following the system. They're breaking the rules. Okay, a case can be made to vote them out at the next meeting and replace them with someone who will obey the rules. And at some point, you're going to wind up having to put people like all the dedicated longtime libertarian activists who have been screwed over and run out of the party. You're going to have to kind of track them down and put them in leadership positions. Here are some of their names. Milton Lukens, Mark Pickens. Those guys are longtime libertarian activists. They can talk about the libertarian philosophy in great length. They can talk about libertarian strategy at great length. Myself, my name's Jake Whitmer. I might get involved if I had any say over actually running the Libertarian Party the way it's supposed to be run, or the way it should be run, if they wanted to actually get anything done. And Andrew Jacobs, there's a guy who cannot tell a lie, is super reliable. He was a better activist than I was, quite frankly. You know, there's no doubt about it. Paul Frankel, there's a guy who sat on the LNC for a little while. Good guy. He can talk philosophy, he can talk strategy. He understands the concept of putting people on the ballot locally. I wouldn't suggest going too local. City council. It doesn't matter if you take over a city council. The sheriff can still come in and arrest everybody, or you know, if you start to inform people what their rights are, you can still have you know, the state come in and just say, oh, well, you guys aren't legitimate, and put a whole bunch of pressure on the weak link. And that's if you got 3 elected people. The state legislature is usually approximately as difficult to win as the city council or the mayorship, especially if you're fighting the existing incumbents. The existing incumbents make deals with themselves for who's going to get promoted in their political careers up to state legislature, you know, from mayoral positions and whatever else with their major party. Because the only thing that the major parties care about is electing people. But if you come in, you're going to be fighting all those people to the death anyway. You're going to have to take a victory away from them by brute processing power, by going door to door and shaking people's hands and smiling at them. Now, here's a recipe. Here's somebody who knows how to do that. Jeremiah Hornbacher in Pennsylvania. Jeremiah Hornbacher was denied a place on the ballot by libertarians. Libertarians screwed up ballot access when he ran in the year of Ron Paul in 2008. Another golden opportunity for us that was sabotaged. In 2008, it was sabotaged by the dupe that was hired by the guy who runs ballot access in the Libertarian Party. And that dupe then could just take all the blame for all their behind-the-scenes fuckery and manipulation. So Hornbacher was denied a place on the ballot, and he wound up getting 17% in a 3-way race as a write-in candidate without even having a spot on the ballot. If he had had a spot on the ballot, support for him would have snowballed. The instant that he gained ballot access, everyone who, you know, the existing rank and file voters would have taken him a lot more seriously. He'd have won. And he was on the ballot for state legislature. He was one of 5 people that was knocked off the ballot. I think up to 5 people. We're uncertain whether a couple of them were serious about running. But 5 people would have run for winnable offices in the Pennsylvania state legislature in 2008. In 2016, the Libertarian Party kept 10 state legislative candidates off the ballot by allocating the money to people who would not go into the state legislative districts, because that's a tougher job. It's a much harder job. You can't ask if someone is a registered voter in Pennsylvania, all of Pennsylvania. You've got to ask them if they're registered in a specific district while their ice cream is melting and they just want to walk past you and go to their car, get in it, and drive away. So you have to kind of stop people who care a little bit about local politics, and then you got to point to a map and ask them where they live on that map if you want the signature to count. That's not something that too many people can get 100 or 200 signatures a day doing when the state party is going to pay the same amount to do the same thing anywhere you want to go in the state, even at a giant university where there's tons and tons of libertarian college kids who are willing to sign. So which place would you rather work at if you're an activist? Well, you're going to go to the college campus, and you're going to spend the whole entire drive there. And it's kind of funny because my reputation has been slandered in a few places that they wanted to prevent me from working in because I was registering too many libertarians down there in Arizona in low population counties. And people tend to vote, allegedly, this is from the person who trained me on a petition still, I haven't verified this, but allegedly Rasmussen or Pew Polling or one of the large polling companies has stated that people tend to vote 71% the way that they're registered. So if they register to vote as a libertarian, and then we have a majority in any district, we can really have a good reason to believe that we have a better chance of a viable candidate getting elected in that district. And we were on track to do that in Arizona and Alaska in the places that I had been to. You know, it would have just taken a continuation of the projects that were paying me. But I found out what I was really doing there was giving the libertarians and the deep state knowledge of how many people I could register to vote. Like, what level of competence do I have? So that was kind of the feedback that I was providing them. And then, you know, they just summarily said, oh, there's no more money to do the things that you were doing. It doesn't matter that your rising percentages are on track to give us a libertarian victory. Go get a real job, ace. You know? So that's the way they run it, though, on purpose. That's how you run a failing organization, with the plausible appearance that you're trying to run it seriously, that you're trying to make it a success. So what I intended to be a 9-minute video is now a 45-minute video. This is why I'm getting out of politics. This doesn't pay. But hey, at least I didn't work for the Democratic Party. Because a guy like me just got through working for the Democratic Party. Or a guy kind of like me. A little bit more heroic, because he was actually working with a tool that could do damage to the system. And that guy's name is Seth Rich, and he's dead. The Democratic Party had him killed.